Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rock University. Absolutely thrilled that you're carving out time from your busy schedules to join us today. My name is Tim Sams, AVP of Learning and Development here at Rock Title. And on today's webinar with me is the incredible Jocelyn Lemon. I love saying her last name. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correct. Our administrative assistant extraordinaire. Say hello, Jocelyn.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. If you see at the bottom of the screen, we have two QR codes. The first one's going to be for our YouTube channel. Please go ahead and subscribe. All our classes get posted on there within a day or two of the class. So if you miss anything, you can always go back and watch it. The second one's going to be for our escrow and sales team. You can go ahead and scan that, or if not, Tim can always direct you to your sales team as well.
Love it, love it. And a quick side note, if you didn't mention this, I was letting some people in. Today's webinar is being recorded and we'll upload that to the YouTube channel in just a few days. Actually been pretty quick about that. And then outside of that, if you need anything else, feel free to reach out to me. And without further ado, today's speaker is the incredible Jane Sabrinsky, a certified sports life coach and chief well-being officer. I love that title. She's dedicated to helping high achievers unlock their full potential. With a background spanning real estate, yoga, and motherhood, Jane brings a powerful, holistic approach to performance and personal growth. She blends sports and strategy and mindfulness and real world experiences to help you level up in business and in life. Get ready to get inspired. Let's welcome Jane Sabrinsky.
Thank you so much, Tim. Jocelyn, it's great to see you again. Team, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. And, you know, what I would love to see is your beautiful faces if we can, because this is, you know, some interactive training that we're going to do together. And I realize some of you have may not be in a position to do that, but if we can see your faces, it would be awesome. As Tim mentioned, I'm a certified sports life coach and chief well-being officer. I use the context and methodology of sport, training life athletes like each and every one of you, just as intentionally as athletes train for sport. So I'm going to be sharing with you a couple of tools today that you can literally go out and start to implement right away. And if we think in terms of peak performance, it's about training for a peak life. And it's, as Tim mentioned earlier, I use a very holistic approach to the training. It's both for personal, professional, and philanthropic. So if you think about ourselves in 3 dimensions, we're training to live a peak life. And it all begins with peak moments. So peak moments are the first step in helping us to determine if we're living a peak life and achieving peak performance. So peak moments can be transformational experiences that are not necessarily big moments. However, they can be based on a sense of accomplishment, overcoming adversity, resilience, or they can be, you know, based on an element of joy, and they can be big or they can be small. And so when we think about peak moments, we think about really the feelings, and that if I could repeat that feeling every single day, I would be living a peak life. And so what I want everyone to do is take a moment and write down a peak moment from your life. So it could be something professional, it could be personal, it could be something that happened yesterday, it could be something that happened 10 years ago. But what I want you to be thinking about is, okay, if I could recreate these moments all of the time, what would that look like for me? And so I want you to just take a moment and write down a peak moment for you. I'm going to share my screen, but you know, this is pretty easy to talk through as well.
While everybody's taken a moment to write out their peak moments, I see in the audience we have Vaughn Kelly joining us. I think he is muted. He might be on a call, but Just want to give a quick shout out to Vaughn Kelly, VP of Sales for Arizona and Nevada. What's up, Vaughn? Thanks for joining us today.
Yes, of course. I'm always here to, support and get Jane's amazing blessings because she's fantastic at what she does. So I hope you all enjoy, but nice to see you all on, and I hope you are able to leave with something today.
Thanks, Vaughn, for being here, and you're required to play full out too.
Oh, I know.
So team, what I want you to be thinking about is not just the moment itself, but I really want you to think about what were the feelings that showed up for you. And I want you to get as specific and as detailed as you can. And I can't necessarily see everybody on the call. So I have asked Tim and Jocelyn to kind of help me out, making sure that everybody gets an opportunity to share with each other and be heard. So if I miss you or I don't call on you, like, please forgive me now. And of course, I'm not very tech savvy, so I'm afraid to touch anything and like have it all disappear. So I don't know if you can give a thumbs up, you can give a reaction when you have got your peak moment. And then I am going to ask us to share as a team. And maybe so perhaps introduce yourself and what market you're calling from, where you are, and then just share with us what your peak moment is. Vaughn, why don't you kick us off? Oh, Tim, go ahead.
Oh, you want me to kick it off? I need to let Vaughn kick it off. Vaughn, you want to kick it off, or you want me to kick it off, sir?
Sure. One of my peak moments was whenever I really found out, what really differentiated me from like a lot of my competition early on in my sales career through title and escrow. It really took me to dive deep to really see what was currently being presented in the market, and then what type of value that I could actually add where it was going to serve another real estate agent's business, to the highest degree. And, it was just what's going to get them, the most return on investment. Right. So that happened to be just my video marketing skill set. So, I mean, of course, when I first started, all my videos looked like crap, but, the more I've done it and the practice that, I went through and, just refining my skills, I eventually, got really, really good at it. And I feel like at that point in time, my business just took off, and I feel like I was responsible for a lot of real estate agents' growth with just getting or allowing them to have more awareness of their brand and of their business, but doing it in a trendy way. So not traditional, but I think it was really me finding that and understanding that, I had to go all in, and I knew it wasn't going to happen overnight, but my consistency and persistence with wanting to get better and proving myself, because it was a battle against myself, essentially. Once I finally achieved that, that was a peak moment for me, just realizing like, man, like where I came from to where I am now, like I really did do that, and it took a lot of hard work, but it was worth it for me.
Beautiful. So one thing I didn't tell the team to do is give your peak moment a name, team. And so Vaughn, what would you call that peak moment?
That's a good question. I would call it maybe pinnacle.
Beautiful.
I don't know.
Write it down. Write it down. So team, we want to really anchor in what are the feelings that show up for us. So I see Grace. Grace, can you share a peak moment with us? And you guys are all on mute, so. Okay, Julie, I see you. Are you able to share a peak moment? Maybe I don't know, Tim, what's the best way to do this? Anybody unmuted that wants to share?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I was just going to drop in the chat and let them know that it's okay to unmic. Yeah. And if you're having any problems unmiking, then maybe drop something in the chat as well. And we'll see if we can get some more involvement, because that's key to today's presentation and really learning. While we get a few more people willing to unmic, I'll just jump in and talk about my peak moment. And this is more on a personal level, not so much business related, as Vaughn so eloquently stated. Nicely done, Vaughn. But I think a huge peak moment for me was not only the day I found out that I was having twins, but my twins actually being born. So I have twins, boy, girl, that are 20, sometimes 27, sometimes 12, as I had mentioned earlier in our sidebar conversation. But wow, what a day. When we found out, my wife just started crying like she thought I was going to leave her. And for one brief moment, I had that thought that I might go sell t-shirts on some Caribbean beach and, forget about all my responsibilities, but not the case. Absolutely amazing day for me.
Beautiful, Tim. So what did you name it?
2 heartbeats, 1 beginning.
Beautiful. I see that some people are having trouble unmuting. So I don't know if we need to check the settings, Tim, if we've got everybody muted and they have the ability to unmute. Julie, I see you're unmuted. Do you want to share? All right, Tony.
I guess my peak moment was the day I married my soulmate. And it allowed me to change my life in a different direction.
And what'd you name it?
Name my soulmate?
Would you name your peak moment marrying your soulmate?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Jocelyn. Thanks, Julie. We'll work on that.
My peak moment, I'm gonna say when I bought my first home, because I just wanted to get out of my parents' house, so I was just very excited to have my own place. And I never rented before. I just went straight to buying a house, which was exciting.
What did you name that?
Home.
Wow, beautiful. And tell me more about the feelings that created, Jocelyn. I know you talked about, wanting to get out of the house, but what are some of the other feelings around buying your first home?
I felt accomplished, but I was also sad to be leaving my parents' house. I was the baby, so I was the last one to leave. So it was really hard, but it was also exciting.
Yeah, hard and exciting. Jennifer, I see maybe you're not muted. Jeff, what about you? Well, that's a little bit of a performance barrier, isn't it? If we can't unmute ourselves.
I think Jeff just joined, but yeah.
Hey, Jeff, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that, you guys.
So, Jeff, we're just sharing some peak moments in our life that are, transformative experiences, milestones, senses of accomplishment, or perhaps laughter, joy, moments that if we could replicate them on a daily basis, we would be living a peak life. So give you a moment to think about a peak moment for you, anchoring in those feelings, and then just giving it a name. Like I think in terms of like a headline, something that the brain can just pull from really quickly. Anybody else want to share? Tim, help me out if I can't see people.
I am looking at, I'm talking with Jennifer right now on chat, and she is, try it now, Jennifer. I just changed your ability to unmic. Hopefully you can unmic now. And
Appreciate
Grace,
that.
yeah, Grace is also typing, so.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I apologize because there's landscapers behind me, so if you hear that noise, but so I did join late as well, but I think that my peak moment resonates with the last person that spoke and buying her first home. That was also partnered with, a different job that allowed me to afford my first home. So I actually bought my first home when I was 27, and I was the first person in my family that bought a house that young, and also first person in my family to make the salary that I did at that time. So, and that's a lot different than it was nowadays because I'm much older now. But that was definitely a pivotal change. Prior to that, I worked in the apartment industry, so it's kind of like moving, every year, moving where your job is. So I moved a lot, so it was nice to have that, place to call home. So mine would be stability.
Ah, beautiful. And I noticed that Jeff shared the birth of his first grandchild. So maybe team, that's a winning strategy. If you can't unmute yourself, we can share in the chat. We work and we adjust. Is there anybody else that maybe I'm not seeing on that has a peak moment they want to share? Yeah, totally get it, Grace. Thanks so much, you guys. Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I dream. Julie, share. Maybe she can put it in the chat.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, everybody's mic is enabled as well as video. So
that's amazing.
Anyway.
All right. Well, really important. I do want you guys all to feel heard and certainly seen, even in the unseen. So I'm gonna keep us moving forward, but I really want to make sure that if you have a moment to write it down inside of the chat that we can share. Team, what becomes really important is peak moments. When we're going for change or we're wanting to live a peak life, when we can reflect on those peak moments and really embody the feelings, this is what we're going for. So it's really anchored in the feeling. And peak moments, oftentimes we think about, I love it, called Unbelievable. Thanks, Grace. Gosh, these are going to be these would sound super exciting. I'm bummed that we're missing them. Because peak moments also give us energy. You can see sometimes when people share, or even the fact that Grace and Julie put, dream in all caps or unbelievable with exclamation points. We get a sense of the energy behind it. And so when we think about going for a peak life, it's about how do we cultivate more peak moments every single day. Oftentimes what happens is we get those hallmark moments, those weddings, the births, things like that. And how can we work on creating them every day? I often think about, from a woman's perspective, excuse me for all the males in the room, but like a diamond bracelet. You get a diamond bracelet and some people are like, oh, no, I can only wear it on special occasions. I'm basically saying, let's wear the diamond bracelet every single day if it makes you feel good and it makes you happy. So thinking in terms of peak moments. Now, the peak moment that you shared starts to create the benchmark. It's you beginning to realize, what are those feelings for me, that if I can duplicate those every single day. And peak moments are very personal, so they sound different for everybody. So if peak moments are where we're headed, then stats become the stepping stone. kind of the scorecard. If you think about stats from a sports perspective, and you guys, you don't have to have played sports to work with me. If you played sports, you'll kind of have that muscle memory that you can associate with. But stats in sports are the facts, the figures, and the numbers that don't lie. They tell us how many points scored, how many rebounds made, how many wins, losses, how many penalties. So stats begin to paint a picture of how we're really doing. You can ask an athlete or a team like, hey, how are you guys doing? It's like, oh, we're doing great. And then you look at the stats and a different picture emerges. I use stats in my training, not coming from a shame or a blame perspective, but really about creating awareness. How am I really living my life? Am I thriving in that 8, 9, or 10 zone, or maybe living in a little bit lower aspect? So if we think about stats, stats are the stepping stones that get us to the peak moments. So here's what that looks like. And maybe you guys, you can draw it out for those of you that are visual, but if the scale is 1 to 10, 1 being low and 10 being high. Now, I train my clients to live in that 8, 9, or 10 zone. And I call that the peak zone, with the 10 being like that peak moment. So if we're going for training, it's about, okay, how can I be in that 8, 9, or 10 zone? And so we have to start statting things up. We start to have an awareness of different aspects of our life, different components. We start to break it down and begin to ask ourselves the question, where is the opportunity for me to raise my stat? So if we look at this scale from 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being high, I realize not every day is going to be full of peak moments, 10s. If the stat is a low stat, meaning you have identified it as like a 1, a 2, or a 3, the question becomes, can I delegate it or delete it? So if we look at it from a time management perspective, if we look at it from an energy management perspective, can I delegate it or delete it? So thinking in terms of what are the really low stats in my life, professionally and personally, can I delegate it or delete it? Now, if it is a low stat and you cannot delegate it or delete it, I call that cardio. So I'm giving you some new thinking, unless cardio is something you don't really like to do. Cardio is anything that you give a low stat to, but it gets you to a 10. So I want you to think about something maybe professionally. And I know you guys are all, I believe you're all in different aspects of real estate. I'm in real estate, so I might be able to connect some dots there. But I want you to think about some aspect of your job that you don't really like to do. You can't delegate it, you can't delete it, but it gets you to the 10. So cardio is anything you don't want to do, but you have to do it to get to your 10. So oftentimes when I'm working with people and they've played sports, they might share with me something like in soccer, cardio for them was doing suicides, training, back and forth running. The 10 was that it got them stronger, faster, more powerful. Hated doing it, but it was critical to their peak performance. So that's what I want you to be thinking about. I want you to think about something that you don't really like to do, but it gets you to your peak. It gets you in that 8, 9, or 10 zone. Would love for you guys to share. If you can't unmute and share, maybe you share in the chat. So something that you would identify as cardio in your world. And I want you to think about what's the 8, 9, or 10 that it gets you to. And there's not a ton of us on here, so like I'm super cool with open mic, just share.
I have a couple people typing in the chat area. Jeff is typing.
Recruiting.
Jeff, yeah, for sure.
Love it. Was that Jeff? Jeff, did you say recruiting?
Yes, I did.
Great. So tell me, Jeff, what is it that, so you don't like doing the recruiting? What's the 10 for you? What gets you, what's the 8, 9, or 10?
That I don't. Well, recruiting is a tough one because it's one of those deals. It's not that I totally dislike it. It doesn't charge my batteries a whole lot, but I know it's got to be done. It's a money thing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that like you said, I do it and I just get it done and, have the right attitude and all that. But that's one. What would be a couple of the other ones? That's a great question. I don't know offhand, to be honest with you.
Okay. Anybody else? Something that you consider cardio, don't like it, you got to do it to get to the 10. Social, I'm with you on that one, Jennifer. Yeah. Social media. What's the 10 that it gets you to, Jennifer? Getting you in front of like-minded people who can become clients. So team, what's really important is that oftentimes what happens is cardio, we will, from an energy and emotional management component, focus on the cardio, the thing we don't want to do. God, I don't want to do this. I hate this. And we may, in fact, then start to procrastinate it. We begin to delay it, and it starts to bring the energy down. I'm introducing some new thinking here and a new language around cardio because we want to acknowledge that we've got to do some cardio, but we want to put our energy and our thoughts around the 10. What does it get me? So Jennifer, just using that as an example, because that's cardio for me as well. It's really focusing like, okay, I got to get in and get my cardio done. But while I'm doing it, I'm going to focus on the thing that it gets me versus not wanting to do it, because that tends to bring us down. And again, from a time management perspective, it's sometimes the thing we procrastinate or put off. And I love what Jeff said. He's like, I get in there, I get it done. And so when I'm working with clients from a time management perspective, one of the things we play around with is, all right, maybe doing a little bit of cardio in the morning, a little bit of cardio in the afternoon. If the entire day starts to feel like cardio, meaning it's full of low stats, this is how burnout happens. So we want to acknowledge that there is cardio that we have to do, but then how do we make sure our day is full of more 8s, 9s, and 10s? The things that really elevate our energy, the things that are peak moments. Jeff.
The thing that a lot of times you do, like you say, cardio, going to the gym, lifting weights, treadmill, all that stuff. There's days, that I find with myself, because I used to go in the morning, now I would go right after work. And there's days that I say to myself, man, I'm tired, I don't feel like going. And then I just say, drag your freaking butt down there. I get it done. And then I walk out and I'm like charged up. Yes, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I hit the weights. And that's what brings you back to where you need to be and have that mindset. Try to get that. Like I said, used to go in the morning early, get up at 4 and do it, and don't do that now. So I just made a commitment that I go right after work. I don't go home. I don't get home till 7. But when I get home, I'm charged up and I say, I'm glad I did it. Just like recruiting, just like making phone calls. You got to get it out of the way. You've got to have that mindset. I'm going to do this, even though you don't want to do it. And then you just do it and get it done. And then you're pumped when you're done. You go, I'm so glad I did it. And then you just try to rinse and repeat.
Yeah. So beautiful. Thank you. Because really we want to put our energy team around the things that elevate. So when we talked about peak moments, right? It shifts our energy. It shifts the way we're being and performing. So now inside of that scale, we also have these things 4s, 5s, 6s, and 7s. And that's just kind of like the average training zone. And identifying those things in our life that are like mid-range. Don't hate them, not really cardio, can't delegate, delete, don't really love them. The question becomes, what can I do to raise my staff? So let me just give you an example. Perhaps there's a standing meeting you have to attend, and it's not horrible, but you don't love it. Now, the opportunity is to say, okay, what's my stat on this? And it's a 6. What can I do to raise that stat for me? What can I do to make that meeting feel like be an 8, 9, or 10? It could be something as simple as what you wear to the meeting if it's in person. It could be, you know what, I'm going to bring my favorite treat to the meeting and share it with everybody. You know what, I'm going to stop and get my favorite beverage before I attend the meeting. Or maybe put on a song that really elevates. So we begin to explore this idea of what am I in control of? Because you may not be leading that meeting, you might not be in charge of that meeting, but what is it that you are empowered to do to raise that stat for you? Because we want to shift out of just being training in an average way to creating that peak life, creating peak performance. Thoughts, comments, team, on that? So when it's a mid-range stat, the question becomes, how can I raise my stat?
Jeff, I love that what you were saying about, how you felt after you made it to the gym and you found a workaround, that you're absolutely committed to going to the gym after work, right? I'm reflecting back on my sales career early on, going back many years, far more than I cared to point out. But that said, absolutely hated cold calling, right? It was just something I didn't enjoy doing. And I think I'm not alone in that. I think there's a lot of people out there that just don't like cold calling. But the reward for me, I found a way to reward myself for each call that I made, for each appointment that I set. I would reward myself. I'd pay myself a quarter or 50 cents or whatever the case may be. And I eventually ended up getting like a robocaller that would just line up calls for me. So once I'm in, got the first call going, and there's one lining up right behind me, so I couldn't back out. Yeah. So I got to find things that motivate you and reward yourself for doing those things that you don't enjoy doing, right?
Yeah, so Tim, that's really important because, sometimes that's why gamifying things can work, when we can make it more playful. Because what happens sometimes is we get stuck in that thought loop. We get stuck in that pattern of like, God, I hate this, I really hate this. And then look what starts to happen to ourselves. Like, we're not really in the present moment. We're not really achieving peak performance in that moment. And instead, we're just really focused on what we don't want, instead of like, okay, what do I want? And so gamifying it can sometimes get us unstuck, if you will, get us out of that loop. The reason I've identified it as cardio is a simple message that doesn't require any thinking. We just acknowledge like, it's time for cardio, because we don't want to put our energy into the thing we don't want to do. We want to put our energy into the 8, 9, or 10, the thing that it gets us. So team, developing a skill like this requires practice. So let's think for a moment, what are some ways that we can practice statting things up? So for example, you could start to stat up your clients. Are you working with people that are 8s, 9s, and 10s for you? Or are you working for a lot of people that are cardio, or people that are draining your energy? Super powerful question when you begin to stat up who you're working with, who you're hanging out with. Are you hanging out with 8s, 9s, and 10s? And what do those look like for you? So we talk a lot about that ideal client, right? Really thinking energetically, like, who is an 8, 9, or 10 for me? Who are the types of people that I want to be working with. We can look at those mid-range clients, just as an example, and ask ourselves the question, what can I do to raise that stat? What could I do to raise that stat working with them? What are some things that might raise that stat for me that I could explore? Give me some other ideas, team, on ways that you could practice statting some things up, even inside of your business.
Back in the
Feel
day,
free.
I had a guy that lived in Utah, and we would just call each other right out of the blue and start right into, hey, you're thinking about selling a home. I've seen it on the market. We didn't say, hi, how you been? None of that. We jumped right into it. And we'd call each other probably 3 or 4 times a week, just random. And we go right into our presentation thing. And I think a lot of people, their cardio is they're not being prepared. Just like Tim said, I never do the auto dialer. I would dial it myself. By the time I would get ready to hang the phone up, I already had another call coming, and I didn't have time to hang it up and go out and talk. I would just jump right into this process. And I think a lot of times we're not prepared, and that's our cardio. We're not, when you go into something, say, I've only got 3 numbers to call, or I'm going to call my sphere of influence, but you're not prepared for it. You haven't practiced your scripts. You don't know what you're going to say. You don't know what's going on in the market. Then you don't want to do it because you know if they say to you, well, what's going on in the market? Well, I don't know. I wasn't ready for this. I didn't think you were going to ask me. So I think a lot of times that is our cardio, is that we come into things not prepared. I think, like I said, let's do role play. When I first came to Realty One, I was from Berkshire Hathaway and Keller Williams. We went right into role playing here. I'd start doing role playing. And at the beginning, we'd have probably 20 people. Within 2 weeks, 4, 2, 1, 0 after that, because nobody wanted to do it. So we don't do role playing in practice. But I think anybody on this call, if you want to get better, you and a friend role play each other. Do practice your listening presentation on your mom, and tell your mom, listen, don't treat me like I'm your daughter or your son. I'm going to come in, I'm going to look at the house, I'm going to sit down, we're going to talk.
Yeah.
That's the only way we get better.
Yeah, absolutely. So team,
I
another
love
thing.
that, Jeff.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Tim.
Oh, I was sorry, Jane. I was just saying I love that. I love that, Jeff. That's just great feedback and advice. We all should be role playing, and I know as I prep for calls and webinars, I make sure that my script and everything's in place, and I know what I need to do so that I don't create all this additional stress for myself on calls or when I'm presenting in person.
Yeah. So team, another thing I think about is if you're doing open houses or you're doing an event that you're hosting somewhere somehow, ask yourself the question, like, what's my stat on that? What would make that a 10? What would make that a 10 for my participants? So when we begin to shift the perspective and really ask that question, we might come up with new creative ideas that really elevate, create a transformative experience for other people who are attending. So really asking ourselves that question, like, okay, what would make that meeting a 10? What would make that open house a 10? What would make that lunch and learn a 10? What would be a 10 for me? You can ask other people, like, what would be a 10 for you? And when I'm saying 10, team, I'm talking about what would be an 8, 9, or 10. What would fall into that scale? That would create that peak moment, not only for ourselves, but potentially for others. Other really, really simple ways that you can begin to practice this, you can look at your wardrobe and stat it up. And just begin to notice. I don't care if it's sweatpants, if they're a 10 for you. But stat up your wardrobe and begin to notice, am I wearing things that make me feel like an 8, 9, or 10? And if you have something and it's like, okay, that's, it's kind of a 5 for me, 6. What's something you could do to raise it to an 8, 9, or 10? Little ways that we can begin to practice. Statting up restaurants we go to. Do I go to things that are 8, 9, 10? Do I order things that are an 8, 9, or 10 for me? Sounds, it can sound really benign, but you'd be amazed at how many people, when they start statting things up, they walk into a room in their home and they begin to stat it up. They begin to go, oh, wait, what can I do? Oh, wow, my office is actually kind of a 6 for me. What could I do to make it an 8, 9, or 10? Changing the environment to elevate. Because remember, it's not just about peak performance, but it's about how am I living a peak life. Right. Julie says, I think too, for me to write down on paper what I want to achieve and how I'm going to get there. Thank you for saying that, because team, listen, it's not about going from a 2 to a 10. How do I go from a 2 to a 3? How do I take something from a 4 to a 5? Our brains tend to think in big leaps and bounds, and that can be very intimidating. We're not trying to climb Mount Everest. We're trying to get to base camp. And then we're trying to get to the next base camp and the next camp. We can have Mount Everest in our vision, in our quest, but it's about how do I raise it one stat at a time.
Something I think about as well, real quick, and I don't mean to interrupt you,
is
like for me as well. I've always made my bed at home, and it drives me absolutely crazy if I don't make the bed. If I come in, I haven't done it in years, but I'd come into the house, go into my bedroom, and the bed was unmade. It freaked me out. It's just one of them weird things that I have to do to make sure that my zen is there. That's my 8, 9, or 10. That starts my day. Making sure I don't leave my house. And I a lot of ladies complain about their husbands. They leave this out in their shoes and their all that. Not me. My house, there's nothing. I leave nothing out. Everything's put away. I don't like sinks in it. The dishes in the sink. None of that every night. And the whole thing for me is it's a mindset, because that sets my mind straight. Now I'm square, and then I can move on and do what I got to do the next day. But if you start out bad, if your house is cluttered, you haven't cleaned up, it's a mess, your mindset is going to be that way when you try to start talking to people and recruiting and having things going on. So I think a lot of times we try to make things very complicated when they can be very, very simple. It's the little things that make all the details in our lives and get us to the 8, 9, and 10. You start out wrong in the morning, you're going to start out bad in the afternoon.
So team, I'm going to invite you to just do a little exercise with me. If you've got a piece of paper, this is fairly simple. If you don't, I think you'll remember it. But I'm going to give you what I call the 7 F's. And all I want you to do is stat them up on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being low, 10 being high, saying it's at least an 8 to be great. So I want you to think about a moment. Think for a moment. You're going for your peak life. Keep in mind, this is very personal. What is a 10 for you might be very different than what is a 10 for someone else. Okay, so it's very personal. So I want you to just think right now, your first F is fitness. Scale of 1 to 10. 1, I have no fitness. It's a total 1 for me in terms of how you want to live your life. Okay, so again, this is about you deciding on a scale of 1 to 10, are you training in your life in that 8, 9, or 10 zone? Where are you? You can share in the chat. Thanks, Tony. Not required. Okay, scale of 1 to 10, fitness. Second F, family. Scale of 1 to 10. Now, you might be saying, okay, what the heck do you mean by family? You decide. Could be time spent with family. It could be a myriad of things. But like, if I'm going for my peak life around family, what's my stat on it? Financial, your third F, financial. Training for my peak life financially. What's my current stat? Faith. Now that can be religion. It doesn't have to be. However you define faith for you. Faith in yourself. Faith in what you're going for in your life. It can absolutely be religion if that's important to you, and a matter of, okay, am I practicing it at a level 8, 9, or 10 for me? Fun. Another F. Fun. Good job, you guys. I love it. You guys are living in that 8, 9, or 10 zone. Friends. Could be time spent with friends. Could be quality of friends. Let's see. Fitness, financial, faith, family, fun, friends. What am I missing? Oh. Freedom, love that. Field, meaning your career. How could I leave that one out? Could be where you are in your career. What you do in your career. Scale of 1 to 10.
A lot of great comments in the chat section. Thank you, Grace. Thanks, Jeff, Julie.
So team, remember, as we begin to stat things up, it's simply an opportunity to see more clearly what is happening. You are the one choosing whether or not you're living in that 8, 9, or 10 zone. I am not telling you what that looks like for you. It's you deciding for you. So some of you, popped up a couple of 7s. I mean, the question then can become, how could I make this an 8? Yeah, thank you, Julie. Having that awareness where our stats are low, it's an opportunity to go, okay, how might I raise that stat? How might I raise it? You know what? I'm gonna eliminate Starbucks for a while and save $10 a week. What's one thing that I could do that would begin to raise that stat? You know what? I'm gonna plan a little gathering with some of my best friends and do a little happy hour, make it a peak moment.
Love that. I think for me, when I put in 7s, it's obviously I want to have fun and I want friends, but I get so work family focused that I'm like, forget to have fun sometimes, or forget to reach out to a very good friend. So I love that idea. Good stuff so far.
Well, what's really important, team, as high achievers, we're not talking about perfection. Remember, a 10 isn't about it's got to be perfect. It's about the feelings that we're creating. It isn't necessarily about perfection. It's about having alignment. It's about recognizing, like, what are the feelings that I want to create? And then looking at, okay, what are the opportunities that I have to raise my stats? Looking at the different aspects of your business. You might take a look at your average day and stat it up. Notice how much of your day is filled with things that are 8s, 9s, and 10s for you. How much of your day may feel like cardio? What might you sprinkle in or incorporate in order to elevate your day? I want to encourage you, team, at the very least, make your morning routine a 10 for you. Whatever that looks like. I don't care how long you sleep or don't sleep, whether you make your bed, don't make your bed, feed the dog, don't feed the dog, walk the dog, whatever it is, work out, don't work out. I want you to really think about what would be a 10 for me that would get my day started off in a beautiful and wonderful way. And you choose it. You decide. But at the very least, beginning your day in a way that does not feel like cardio. Team, thoughts, comments, ideas?
Great stuff so far. I'm struggling with the image of Jeff making his bed. I can't get that out of my mind.
True story. I actually walked into my room one day and was like, what is my stat on my bedspread? And I'm like, I do not like this bedspread at all. And so it was a very low stat. So I went out and I went shopping for a bedspread that was a 10 for me. And it's amazing what something as simple as that can do for your well-being, for wanting to get into bed and get out of bed, to make the bed, all the things. Could be adding a fresh pillow, can change everything.
Yeah, I remember back when COVID hit and we were all on lockdown, and so webinars and Zoom calls that was the thing, right? That's how we were communicating and conducting business. My wife always used to why are you dressing up like to be on Zoom? Like you could be in your PJs in the lower half if you wanted to. I'm like, because of, if I don't look right, I'm not going to feel right, and it's probably not going to be a great call. So yeah, it's like making a bed. Start your day off right.
All right, so team, working with me, training, you have to make a commitment to practice something. So I want you to take a moment and just look at one of your stats. And I want you to just think of one thing you might commit to practicing that would raise your stat. And if you want to share it in the chat, we can champion one another and be on each other's support team. Love it. Yes, hate working out. There you go. You know what? Thank you, Julie. That's amazing. But if you were to swim or bike, that would feel like a 10. Yeah, you guys really thinking about movement. And maybe you hate working out and going to the gym, but maybe there's a different type of movement. I had one client whose swimming pool was literally outside of his master bedroom, and he loved to swim. And he'd never used swimming as his part of his morning routine. And he's like, oh my gosh, now I just roll out of bed and I go for a spin. A swim, not a spin. So think of one thing that you might commit to in one of those 7 F's that would raise your stat. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. You guys will get this from Tim, I believe. And team, there's 3 ways you can work with me. I produce every week. I produce what's called the Monday Momentum. It drops on a Sunday. And if you're interested in getting on my email list, just email me. I think, Tim, they might have access to that. You can also take what I have, an assessment called the Champions Check-In. It's a series of 10 questions you get to ask yourself, stat yourself up, and it creates an opportunity to see areas that you can be training in. Or if you're interested in working with me one-on-one, you can set up a discovery call with me and we can start to build a game plan for your performance. Love that, Jane. I failed to mention, you look amazing today. Oh, thank you. I love this blouse. It's a 10 for me, not gonna lie. It's working. It's working. As always, I love your content. I appreciate you being here with us today, as well as everybody else that was on the call. And if you found value in today's call and you're not using Rock Title or Rock Title Agency,
write us in on your next transaction. You won't be disappointed. We certainly would love an opportunity to earn your business. And that's all I have. Great comments. Thanks for everyone's patience. And again, great stuff, Jane. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. And I just put my my email address in the chat as well.
Perfect. Perfect.
All
All
right.
right.
Thank you, team.
Thanks,
For
everyone.
being here, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.
Be safe out there.